Defined AI, enabling creators of the future.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Queen of Tech interview. As we celebrate the International Women's Day this March 8th, and as stronger gender equality advocates we are here at Defined AI, we are conducting interviews throughout the month of March with amazing women in the tech industry. Every Tuesday, a new interview will be up with stories of strong and fierce women who thrived in male-dominated industries. Today, we have our very own Julie Belião. Julie is the Senior Director of Product Management at Defined AI. With 12 years of experience in natural language processing, Julie was in academia for 5 years, where she helped building the world's first multimodal corpus of spontaneous French and was involved on the first ever movie starring the voice of the late and famous French actor Louis de Funès, 100% synthetically recreated from past recordings. Julie passed by big tech names such as Google, where she worked as a linguist and project manager on the development and localization of products for the French market, like Google Assistant, Maps, and Google NLP Cloud. More recently, Julie served as Director of Quality and Babel and joined us at Defined AI in 2018. Julie, thank you so much for being with us today, and we couldn't be more proud to have you here with us, especially on this special day. You are an example of a successful woman in tech, and your path is obviously the evidence of it. I would like to start by asking you some questions about your early day career and how you did to understand what was your thought process and how you managed it. When did you decide to study linguistics, and when did you understand that your path would be in technology and not, for example, as a language teacher?
Well, thank you, Katarina, for having me today. Regarding linguistics, it was a bit by chance, to be honest, because I come from a scientific, courses in high school, and my first ever course was medical studies. Because, at 18, you don't really know what you want to do. And my family has doctors and nurses and pharmacists, so I was like, well, why not? And I stayed like for a year there and finally decided that was not for me, especially when we started, to open human bodies and these kind of things. So I decided that I needed a break to actually think about my life and what I wanted to do. That's when I moved to Bray, which is a little city near the sea in Ireland, close to Dublin. And there I got to know a lot of people, from different countries, speaking different languages while learning English. And that triggered something in me about, other cultures, other languages. And when I came back in France, I decided to sign up for a course on Quechua and Aymara, which are languages spoken in South America. And from there, I was like, okay, that's great. That's so interesting. But at some point, I also need to, find something I can apply in the real world. And for me, the real world was a lot about, technologies and how technologies can help human to communicate, human to improve, like their life about, medicine and all of that requires communication, requires translation, requires to interact with the machines. And that's when I decided to take a major in natural language processing. So I was doing 3 bachelor at the same time, one in linguistics, so that I could learn the fundamentals of linguistics, which is really important to then communicate with the machine. My courses in Quechua and Aymara, and at the same time, natural language processing. And from then, I followed the path. I was inspired by a lot of great teachers, great colleagues, pushed by women, a lot of women that helped me, get where I am. Especially, I remember a teacher of semantics. She's an amazing Italian linguist, and she's the one who actually convinced me to go for the PhD and all the rest of my studies after. Without her, I wouldn't be here.
That's amazing. That's such a diverse and, unexpected path, right? Going from all this international background and that experience, it's amazing, Julie. And then you end up at Google, right? And you work in products such as Google Assistant and Google Maps and NLP Cloud for the French market. And since we're talking about here diversity and all of your background, I'm assuming that it helps you to be more aware of the biases that can be built into these systems. What's the key thing to keep in mind to make sure that these systems are not biased and can be more inclusive?
So actually, I also got, working at Google thanks to a woman, Jana Strendova, which is also a Czech linguist, and she was working there. And at the time, I was trying to finish my PhD, crawling my way out of the PhD. And I got this job opportunity to work as a linguist. We were basically analyzing data, ensuring data quality, so that we would feed the system with data that are representative of a given language, of a given culture, but also of all the different speakers that you have within these cultures. And that involve, all genders and all ages, a lot of demographics. And while there, we were constantly facing different types of data, and we were trying to adjust it to the best so that a given market, a given population will recognize themselves into the product that we will release to them. And when it comes to bias, data is something that is needed to feed any type of system. And the system can only do what it's being fed with. If you feed a system with data that, are not representing correctly women or young people or older people or people from different background or level of educations, the system will not be able to communicate properly with them to represent them efficiently. So I think everything starts with the quality of the data and the representativity of the data that you use to feed your system. If you don't represent, and I had a funny example actually. When I was working at Google, we were working on the Google Assistant, and we needed to, make the Google Assistant able to make jokes, right? And jokes are very typical to a certain culture, right? And not all jokes are funny anymore. So we had a lot of work understanding what would be actually funny and entertaining for all the audience of the French market, and adapting those jokes that were from the American culture to the French culture. Some of the jokes were not super okay for French, so we had to redo them, and we were assisted by an amazing team of creative writers there that were taking care of representing every types of humors, and that was extremely enriching for me, because we had to think on a daily basis about all, how to make sure these jokes were inclusive and representative of our population in France.
That sounds like a super funny challenge. And I can imagine the meetings discussing jokes. That should have been fun, right?
A lot of fun, definitely. A lot of fun, but actually quite tricky as well, right? Because, the data that we had to analyze and to create for this, we were thinking every instance, okay, is it not gonna hurt anyone's feeling? Is it representing properly the finesse of our humor in French. And yeah, that was a challenge actually, and led to very long discussions between all the linguists involved in the project.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Now I would like to go back here a little bit, Julie, because you mentioned that women actually helped you to get to where you are and to push you to the path that you're currently in. Why do you think it's the role of women to help other women to go to such male-dominated industries, for example? Why do you think it's the role, let me rephrase that. Why do you think it's the role of women in male-dominated industries?
Well, I will challenge your question by answering what's the role of male to make sure that this environment is safe for women? Because, I mean, there's only much we can do, right? We can support each other. We can, give a push to the most junior, team members to help them getting where they want to be, where they can be, where they should be. But ultimately, when an area is strongly dominated by a certain identity, let's say, we also have to rely on the males to help us getting where we are. And I also have been helped by male that were supportive, that were open, that were comprehensive, understanding of my aspirations and my my goals. And we should not put all the burden on women. I don't agree with this, right? It's not all on us. It's not all on the underrepresented community to do the hard work, the heavy lifting to get where we should be. This also has to change in the mindsets of our colleagues that are more represented in this area. And I believe this is only achieved through education and communication between the different groups. And for instance, like at Google, we had amazing support for different communities. We could create group, we could discuss with each other, we had meetups. And I believe these kind of initiatives create an inclusive environment that enable everyone, whether they are women, that they are from the LGBT community, and so on, to be more vocal and to be heard, right? And it has to be enabled by the people on top. And if people on top are males, like they are the one that have to enable that.
Absolutely. You can only change from the top, right? And you have to have the example.
Well, you have to show the example, you have to set the example, but of course we have also to push from the bottom to get where we want to be and help each other.
Exactly. That's a very good point, Julie. And throughout your career, have you ever felt discriminated by your gender? Do you have any situation that you recall where you felt that being a woman was a disadvantage in this case in the male-dominated industries that you passed through?
Yeah, I would always remember my first programming class. It was at the Epitech in France at a computer science school. I think we were 2 women in the entire amphitheater.
Wow.
And the amphitheater was filled with more or less 200 people. It was not discrimination per se, but let's say that you felt like, whew, here I am. And when we had to create groups, to work together on a specific project, the 2 of us ended up together.
Of course.
So it was not really discrimination, but let's say that there were like some, oh, okay, there are girls here. It was a bit awkward. Later on, when I was working, I think there is always this prejudice that if you were women, you are expected to be working more on, less scientific topics. So, for instance, I remember working in an amphitheater to give my first lecture as a PhD, and I was supposed to teach Python programming classes, and one of the students asked me if I could lend them a pen, and I, of course, lent the pen, and then walk my way to the stage, to start giving the classes, and I heard like a a nice surprise, because they wouldn't expect to see a 24 years old young lady giving the Python class, right? So these little things, but I think these things contribute also to change people's mindset and how they see, who can lead in this area. And I think having models, role models, is really important. That's why, encouraging women to voice their opinion, to go for these leadership positions in these kind of areas is key in changing people's mentalities.
Absolutely. And Julie, if you could go back and speak to the young Julie that was alone with another woman on that auditory full of men, what would you tell her?
Keep going. Don't change. Do the same.
Awesome. That's awesome. And who is a queen of tech for you? So who is a role model for you in this area?
There are many of them. And, I don't like the idea of, all this jargon that create feminine words for words that are usually used in the tech area, like, this she-EO or this kind of things. I don't like it. I mean, like, take our CEO, Daniela Braga, right? She's a CEO. She's not a CEO. She's a CEO. She's a freaking CEO, right?
And not a boss babe.
No, exactly, right? So, like, let the women be at these leadership roles. Let this woman be leading the field, and do not feminize it, or like, we are humans. In the end of the day, we are humans. If you feel disturbed by the fact that I have air or my voice is higher pitched than 50 years old male, I mean, that's your problem. If you're disturbed by my boobs, that's your problem, right? But in the end of the day, I have the same brain than you. I think like you. I studied like you. I fought like you, maybe even more, right? So there are role model women in every area. From, I have in my team an amazing QA engineer. She's a very discreet lady. She's working hard, but she's here every day working toward enabling a very good environment with her colleagues. And for me, that's a role model. Like, every people at every stage of the ladder, they contribute to creating this safe environment for other women, this kindness environment, this candid environment where we can, grow and enable each other. And I also have male colleagues that contribute to this, that are the one watching around, seeing if everyone feels safe, whether they're women or male or younger team member that could feel intimidated, And I cannot give you one answer. It's like these little things that everyone does every day to make sure that everyone feels safe and everyone has the space to grow.
Absolutely. And men play a key role here too. So that's a very good point, Julie. And to wrap up our interview, because we're almost running out of time. Time flies by when the conversation is good. So what changes would you like to see in the tech world in the next couple of years?
What changes?
Broad, you have free reign.
So that's a big question.
Flying cars, I don't know.
Flying cars, definitely.
Be amazing.
Self-driving cars, more definitely, because I'm a terrible driver. So I mean, that I only got my driving license 2 years ago. Like, I'm 33 and I got my driving license 2 years ago. Why? Because I was counting so hard on self-driving car to be ready by that time. They're late. Come on, guys.
Tech failed you.
Something, right? So self-driving car, yeah. Flying cars, even better. I mean, I would like also to see a little bit more, diversity at the top. Like, when you go to this big conference where CEOs are talking, I would like to see more of Daniela Bragas than I'm not gonna say, but male CEO. Like, come on, enough of that. Younger people, I would like to see younger people. I would like to see the LGBT community more represented as well. Trans people, like, they are here, they are working in the ranks with us. So, like, come on, open up the ranks and help them lift to the level they should be and where they can do great things.
Absolutely. And Julie, thank you so much for all your effort that you put into this as well, because it's people like you that make this difference happen. So thank you so much for everything. And we will be wrapping up our interview right now. Next Tuesday, we have another interview here at our LinkedIn. Julie, thank you so much for your time today, and see everyone soon.
Thank you, Katarina.
Defined AI, enabling creators of the future.